Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Arena Brawl Cast. My name is TitanLord, joined by my friend Myriad here. Say hello, Myriad.
Hello.
All right, and today we are going to be primarily going over new cards from the Phyrexia All Will Be One Alchemy set, plus going over our regular weekly deck brewing challenge. And after that, we are going to go over the new legends that were spoiled for March of the Machines. Uh, Going straight into it, we have a whole list of cards. We're not going to go over every single one, or maybe we do
We
briefly
might
because
glance over a few, yeah.
we're going to dunk on some of these absolute stinkers. But we are primarily talking about these in the context of the Historic Brawl format, not Alchemy, and a lot of these are designed just to be Alchemy playable. So if you hear us dunk on something that you love in Alchemy, I don't care. All right.
Sort of same here, to be honest. Who
Yeah.
does care? Alchemy?
Who
Who does
plays
care at this
who
point?
plays Alchemy? I don't even know.
Uh,
Never met a single person. All right, do you want to start us off with the Quicksilver Lapidary?
yeah. This card's interesting. I mean, one of the first things that people notice with this card is if you play it with Displacer Kitten, because you're getting a 0 mana spell every time this enters the battlefield,
Mm-hmm.
this will go infinite with Displacer Kitten because you're going to play
Yeah.
it. You're going to get a Mox open into your hands. You're going to play the Mox, blink the Lapidary. You're going to get another Mox in your hand. And there's infinite mana, infinite spells drawn, infinite ETBs because you keep flickering the creature. It's an interesting card. The restriction is you do have to be an Izzet for it.
Yeah.
So there are some like otherwise this could be pretty nasty in Roscoe potentially. Um, potentially,
Yeah.
I don't know
Rusco
if it would
doesn't
actually be
need more
good.
help. And for those who are audio only, for those of you who are just listening, Quicksilver Lapidary reads: when it enters the battlefield, conjure a Mox Opal into your hand. If you don't know what Mox Opal does, it's a 0 mana artifact with the ability, I believe, Metalcraft, which means if you have three or more artifacts, it taps for any color of mana for its Metalcraft ability. So that's why it
Yeah,
goes infinite. You just bounce it with, you cast it, you bounce something, and you bounce the Quicksilver, right, which puts another one into your
yeah,
hand.
yep. And you
And
just
then
keep playing spells with it.
yeah, and then you go through the loop. So
Pretty
very,
silly.
I think it's a
It's kind of
powerful card.
funky.
It is a
You
little
are
bit funky,
also
but I
gonna
think it's
get
powerful.
you're gonna get infinite creature cast. Oh no, not a creature cast. You're gonna get infinite artifact casts or non-creature casts as well, which could also be very relevant, especially because this is an is it. So that might be something theory crafters could have a go with. I have some ideas for it, but they're a bit clunky at the moment. In terms of trying to make this thing competitive, that's going to be a work in progress, I think, at the moment. I'm unsure. I'm unsure how you make this thing consistently good.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the most interesting and potentially powerful cards from this alchemy set.
Mm,
But I said potentially. I think it has the ceiling on it is probably pretty good, but the floor might be too low, might be a little bit too clunky to actually be playable.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
who doesn't like a new infinite combo? So,
so much fun, infinite combos. Yeah. Anyway, all right.
no, not a fan.
Nope, not person.
Oh,
Too much commander. Uh,
oh,
it's
oh,
a
okay.
I like CDH, but if I'm in a combo mood, I'll just go play CDH because they're all combo decks except for like Winota and so a couple other stack decks.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
getting sidetracked. Moving on. Spawning Pod. This card
And
is
honestly,
it's
it's another interesting one.
it's if you
Um,
know the card Prime Speaker Vanifar, it kind of does the same thing. So
yeah,
it's a
vaguely.
3 mana artifact, two and a green. It has the ability pay one, tap it, sacrifice a creature, seek a creature card with mana value equal to one plus the sacrificed creature's mana value, and put that card onto the battlefield. It's a Phyrexia in addition to its other types. It only has a sorcery. There's a lot of text on a lot of these cards, so
I mean, the Phyrexian is seems unnecessary.
yeah,
In terms of like actual deck brewing, I mean it's definitely flavorful. and I can respect that. But yeah, it is a lot of text. Sorcery speed does kind of suck. If we're thinking of similar effects, like I think Vivian on the Hunt, the whatever the 6 mana Vivian is called, I think it's on the Hunt. But you've got the +2 on her. But then like the difference there is that's more of a toolbox where you're tutoring for a card with one extra mana value. So if you know in your deck you need a certain type of card, you can then go, oh, I need a tutor for it by sacrificing this creature to get this mana value. With Spawning Pod, it's not the same, right? So you're just seeking a creature card, so it's not a tutor, which
So
means this
yeah,
is random,
here's
right?
here's the thing. The randomness shouldn't matter if you control the curve of your deck, kind of like in Private Speaker Vanifar. Although Vanifar does get to, I believe Vanifar gets to search, right? Well, something, search your library, yeah. So I think it goes in, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it goes in Prime Speaker Vanifar decks as an extra way to still perform that kind of combo without the commander on the field if it gets removed. It's just some redundancy. I don't know if that deck needs redundancy.
It's more resilient though. Having
Yeah,
having the effect on an artifact is kind of neat. Well, Vanifar, if you just get like board swept with Wrath of God or something, then you're set back to square one a lot of the time. At least Spawning Pod, that will stick around after a sweeper like that.
yeah, and it's not
But it
quite
is
as good.
inconsistent.
Yeah, but it's not quite as good as Prime Speaker 2. One, because it's random. You can build your deck specifically for so that the combo
Right.
goes off immediately. Um, But the other biggest thing is that you have to pay a mana every time you do this. So one, you can't do the ability on curve, right? If you have, if you play your third land and you drop this, you're not immediately getting value off of it. And like in Prime Speaker Vanifard decks, when you pay for it to
Well,
cast
that
your
you get
commander,
haste.
you still
Yeah.
can't use it if you're tapping out for your commander the next turn. So maybe this goes in that deck, maybe it doesn't. I'm not an expert. I don't really know about that combo very well.
Mm. I feel like for this sort of card, or in terms of like restrictive deck building, you're gonna have like only one creature card from like 4, 5, 6, 7, and maybe 8 if you're running like Crater Hoof or something as your win condition, and then you just go up the chain with something like Spawning Pod,
Yeah,
and then you just have a density of low drops just to get the chain going. You don't really care. Those cards are less impactful. If you didn't get like the best 2 drop or the best 3 drop, that shouldn't matter. So maybe like it would be decent there. It's it's interesting. Uh, Unclear if it's actually good. Being an
yeah,
artifact, as I said, I think does help it, but yeah, interesting one.
yeah. I think that's all I have to say about Spawning Pod. Let's move on to Phyrexian Harvester. Do you want to read Phyrexian Harvester?
Yeah, so this one's 4 red for a 5/5 with menace. Honestly, you could probably stop there, but when it's dealt damage, seek that many non-land cards at the beginning of your next end step. Discard those cards.
It's not horrible. I think it's worse than the other Phyrexian
Like
cycle.
4 pip.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
4 pip cycle.
Now blue
Um,
and green's still out there to like be put in, right? Because now
yeah.
we had Obliterator for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I forgot we got the white one. I forgot what that one's called.
Um,
Um, but that one's pretty nuts as well.
yeah, I can't remember
It's
the name
very
of the white one.
similar.
It just came out too.
Yeah, yeah. And then Harvester is just not the same. Like
It's
you
just not as
don't
good.
really care about blocking this thing. It's like they play this and you're like, "Oh, cool, I don't really care." I mean, in terms of historic brawl, I think it's still like somewhat closer in power level, simply because a lot of the things that you would use to deal with these Phyrexian horrors is just 2 mana removal spell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean that sort of gets all of them, and that's usually what's going to happen to them. Um, and when you have evasion on this thing, drawing into more cards is perhaps a little more. No, it's not really though, is it?
Oh yeah.
Obliterator making you sack permanents, and the other one just nuking something else instead.
Oh, I think the
That's
other
that's
one.
definitely better.
I
And
think
flying as well on the white one.
well, I think the white one having flying. I don't know if the thing
It's
is like
trample, I
the
think.
white one like can't die to damage. It's just like super immune to like to creatures at all. So I think it's way more
Yeah.
menacing on the board than Phyrexian Harvesters. But I actually, upon like reading it a second or third time, I do like the seek ability for the damage. It sucks that you have to discard them at the end of the end step, but it
It is an on land, right? So you're always hitting.
yeah, but
Chuck
at
distance
this
and mono red aggro.
but it doesn't
Maybe.
block well. Like it
It's a 5/5.
well, no,
Blocks
what I mean
alright.
is like the ability. Yeah, it's a good blocker, but what I'm talking about is you just lose cards from your deck if you block with it because you're probably
Right.
not always going to be able to cast them at instant speed.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not
Yeah.
as flashy as the other ones. It's not as menacing as the other ones, even though they chucked that keyword on there. Um, it's fine.
Yeah.
Not much else to say there, I think.
Yeah. All right, then we're gonna move on to cards like let's see, which ones are these? Kemba's Outfitter.
Hex Gold Sledge and Bladehold Cleaver.
Yeah, we're just
Um,
grouping these all together.
yeah, it's all equipment matter cards, and the red-white equipment deck is mediocre.
Garbage. It sucks.
It's not great. I mean, it's a lot of fun in queue sometimes because you can do some absurd things some of the time, but it's really slow. It's quite clunky, and so all of these cards are great for that deck. But I mean, overall, I mean the deck's still not going to be amazing, and I think there was just a big push with these three cards, especially just to try and get that deck some power, just so that people who really like the artifact or the equipment deck can jam it in a bit more, and have a little bit more success with it.
Yeah, and then moving on from those, Nettling Host is a three mana 3/3 with Toxic 2 that has something when you do poison counters. It doesn't matter that much. Skipping on to Norn's Fletchling, again another toxic card. It's kind of like
Ambitious Farmhand, I think,
Ambitious
was
Farmhand,
yeah.
except it conjures. It's technically worse because it conjures a planes rather than seeking a planes, so it doesn't thin the deck.
Or searching, yeah.
But if your opponent has more than 3 poison counters though, or 3 or more, sorry, you get a non-land card, which could be good. Like it goes from Ambitious Farmhand to a slightly better what's that dog, the 2 mana dog.
Oh, Spirited Companion.
Yeah, and it has toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very not playable, but probably decent in Alchemy. Moving on.
If you have, yeah, like you need a toxic deck, and at the moment, toxic decks for an 99 card singleton, not happening. Not at the moment.
Quicksilver Servitor, 3 mana, 3/3, 2 and a blue. Ward 2, Phyrexian Cleric. I'm saying these in a very strange order. Whenever you cast a spell from among cards in your hand this turn, proliferate. Cool, moving on. Surgical
I mean,
Metamorph. It's good. It's not bad.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Good in proliferate decks.
it feels like you need more support for that one.
Yeah, I don't think it goes into like Casmina because it's not a planeswalker. It's like how many creatures do you want in your planeswalker deck, and that deck also needs to have like interaction and stuff in order to
feel
fight in the
like
queue. So
This is just one of those cards, the Quicksilver Servitor. I just feel like it's one of those cards that will be broken, like in a year's time,
maybe
where the cards aren't on Arena yet, but they will be, or something like that.
I think it could be good in like a blue red, like any of the blue red planeswalkers, like the Royal Scions, like or Will and Rowan, or there's I feel like there's another one that I'm missing, or like Ral or where you're just like getting the loyalty stupid high because you're casting a lot of spells out of your hand. Might be cool there, but I can't think of another place for it at the moment. I don't think.
Yeah.
Surgical Metamorph, 3 and a blue, artifact creature, Phyrexian Shapeshifter. It's a 0/0, but that's because it costs 1 less to cast if you weren't the starting player. Neat, so if you go second, you get to cast this earlier. And then you may have it enter as a copy of any permanent, except it's an artifact. Ooh, in addition to its other types.
This one's very cool.
I like this card.
It's for all the good Gyruda players out there. This is like your slam dunk best clone effect in the whole deck.
Any permanent.
So it's any permanent if you need the tech or something. Like you can O-ring their O-ring to exile their O-ring. That's kind of funny. Of course, the normal I'm gonna copy Gyruda and have a redraw, but it's also if this is in your hand, you get the cost reduction if you're second, but it still counts as an even mana cost card.
Yeah, really.
That's pretty sick. It's pretty sick in Gyruda. In other decks, it's neat. I mean, clones we don't usually see in decks outside of stuff like Gyruda, in general. But this is definitely like one of the best, if not the best, clone effects currently on Arena, I think. It's just so flexible. Any permanent can be Planeswalker as well.
Could be Ram.
So if they go like Nicol Bolas, I kill your Planeswalker, then you go, I'm going to get Nicol Bolas and kill your Nicol Bolas. How does it feel, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. It's kind of... It's cool. It's a cool
permanent. I'm just lost at that. Any permanent, you just
Hey, it's 3 or 4 mana ramp. You copy a land. Or you put it in Teferi, that untaps a land. Yeah, you copy Lotus Field with it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
That's so
It's
rad.
like
oh wait, no.
3 mana gilded lethal or something.
You might not want that because it enters the battlefield as that with the Lotus, so you'd still have to sacrifice the triggers.
Oh, right.
Yikes.
Right.
That might bite you.
Okay,
really
maybe not.
bad.
Maybe not that. Maybe not that then.
All right, well, there's a lot of dumb stuff you
Neat
can do
card.
with it. Sure, we're gonna see. I'm sure it's gonna see a lot of play.
Any permanent.
Next card is Tezzeret's Reckoning. 1 and a blue for an instant. Exile 3 random cards from your library, face down and look at them. For as long as they remain exiled, you may play one of those cards.
So, we did talk briefly about this card before we started recording. And definitely on first read, it's like, wait, this is just like really bad Anticipate, Experimental Augury, all of those sort of like, oh, look at the top 3 or 4, choose one. It's like, this card just seems like a bad version of one of those. But I think, like, on second read, you're going, wait, hang on. First of all, well, usually when you cast these, like, look at 4 choose one cards, you make the decision at the time. So if you often have, like, a difficult decision where you have 2 really viable options and you're trying to, like, work out which direction is the game going to go so that I know which card will likely be better in this position, you then have to make that decision then and then. That's not always... You're not always going to be correct in those calls sometimes. Or it might be dependent on, like, what you're drawing after that, which is going to change your mind. And the cool thing about Reckoning is that you get access to all 3 of the options until you need one of them. Right? So it's like, you pick 3, or you look at 3, and then you choose one, but you choose one when you want to, like, when you need it. So, especially, like, say for example, you get Counterspell, Board Wipe, Land. Now, depending... maybe on your cards in the board state of the situation, you might be a bit low on lands, worried about making land drops. You might be worried about their commander that they could cast soon, and then you might be worried about their board state, and then you might be going, oh, I don't know which to pick here. And then if this is just a choose one, like traditional, like an impulse or something like that, then you have to make the decision then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I need the land drop just to make sure I can play everything. Oh, I definitely need a counterspell because I don't have one at the moment. Or oh, I definitely need a board wipe because this board I can't deal with otherwise. Something like that. This is you just get them sitting to the side, and then if you draw a sweeper, say you go, oh, luckily, I didn't have to pick the sweeper option. I can
Yeah.
then sweep the board and then like either play the land still or play the counter spell. Um, Obviously, not every choice is going to be so complex as that,
Mm-hmm.
but in those situations, it's definitely a lot better. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting as
I
well, right? Because it's
yeah.
not always going to be that important that you have permanent access. Because sometimes it's going to be like, oh, you just need something to do. You're flooding out, and then you peel like land spell, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this is cool, right?
Yeah. I'm probably gonna test this into fairy because I kind of the more I think about it, the more I think it's pretty good. Also, last thing I want to mention about it, it is those cards are immune to Thoughtseize in the meantime, so
That
they
is true.
can't get yoinked from you. They can't make nobody can force you to discard them before you have to make a choice. You can make that choice whenever you want. It's nice.
Don't have to worry about hand size. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you're drawing too many cards, suffering from success, you can
Yeah.
not suffer in your success with
Just
that one.
my microphone
Very
just
important.
my microphone just fell
Ah,
over.
oh, okay. I thought it was a car driving past. I couldn't tell.
No, I'm gonna have to cut that. Anyways, moving on to Blightwing Whelp. You wanna read this one?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one as well. Which is, I mean, it's good that all these cards are interesting, but then they're also a lot of reading. So this is three mana, two and a black for a flying 2/2 with toxic 1. With a black mana, you can give it haste, and then when it deals combat damage to a player, you seek a card with mana value equal to the amount of poison that they have. So the idea being that the first time you hit them with the Blightwing Whelp, you're going to seek for like a 1-drop, and then the next time it's going to be a 2-drop, then a 3-drop. Um, in terms of like, hey, this is cool. What happens if I run like some mono black toxic deck, and then I can like cheat that up really quick? It's sort of like it's just toxic, such an unsupported archetype again. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
say this multiple times. I think for a lot of these cards, toxic still and largely unsupported archetype. That means that sort of axis to go on is not it's not supported enough to be competitive in any way, or even like even jank friendly. You're gonna struggle even in jank brews to try and make it work. You are gonna struggle even then, I think, especially with this.
Yeah,
Um, it
it's
sort
got
of
a
just
decent.
reads as draw a card, right?
Yeah, well, it's got an okay. Um, just a
Like
card.
if you
Like
think
the draw
about
card ability's
like
okay.
Rankle,
Yeah, I think
like if you
Wrinkle's
compare
better than
to
this.
Rankle, this is also 4 mana. You hit them, it's got flying haste. If you pay the 1 black, you hit them for 1 less damage because it's a 2/2. But then you draw a card and it's not symmetrical.
Yeah,
Um,
Rankle has other modes that I think makes it better than this. I think you're right about this just needing more support in Toxic. So
I yeah, I don't think. I mean, I don't think this is a toxic card in the traditional sense that you're trying to put poison counters on. I just think it's like it's just an interesting way to seek cards from
yeah,
your deck into your hand.
yeah,
I think in a deck that Rankle overperforms in, you could maybe try Blightwing Whelp as like a Rankle-esque type effect and see if that's still good.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
that's not too much more to say about that card. So it
it's maybe okay.
just doesn't quite have a home right now, but is
Yeah.
potentially decent. Speaking of decent, but not any better than decent, is a March Toward Perfection. It is a 1 black mana sorcery. You get a boon with when you cast your next Phyrexian creature spell. That creature enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter and a death touch counter on it. And then you get to draft a card from its spellbook. I looked at its spellbook. It is okay.
Just random
It's got a
Phyrexian
whole bunch of random different
creatures.
Phyrexians. It's got a couple of good ones, and you do get the draft, so I think that means you get to look at 3 and then pick one,
And
right?
pick one, yeah.
So it's cool. I don't think Phyrexian Tribal is going to be a deck anytime soon in the format, and I don't think its spellbook is quite good enough to to warrant playing on its own.
Yeah.
Outside of that, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're basically paying 1 black mana for +1/+1 in Death Touch.
yeah, I don't think
It's
that's
like,
worth it.
eh.
All right, we can move on then. Shieldred's Simulator, 1 and a black for a 3/1 with Metis. It is a Phyrexian horror. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a card is exiled this way, you may conjure a duplicate of that card into the top 5 cards of your library at random. I don't know if you and I are going to disagree on this, Myriad, but I think this card is not good.
I mean, I think 2 mana 3/1 Menace is pretty dope. Like if you play Gix, the 3 mana Gix, like whenever you connect, you draw a card. That's pretty strong in that deck.
But you don't get to draw a card. It's conditional.
Well, you draw a card off Gix in that
true.
deck sort of thing, and it curves nicely into it, right? You're going 2 mana evasive 2-drop, and then 3 mana you're playing the commander. I think it definitely has a home, at least one home in Gix. I think it's excellent there.
Need it though.
Yeah, it's a 2 mana 3/1 with Menace. Like it may as well be vanilla at that point, and you'd still play it.
I'll stand by what I said. I'll give the exception to Gix. I don't think this card is very good outside of that because the duplicate that you're getting has to be from a graveyard. I think you'd have to do too much for this card to really shine because it doesn't even put it into your hand. It puts it in the top 5. So I think that's very bad.
It's also so first of all there are 2 triggers. The first one is you exile up to 1 target card. So you can choose to exile or not to exile something. And then the second is you may get a copy in the top 5. Now, my first read through, I'm like, oh, it's a 2 mana 3/1 with Menace and downside because you have to put potentially bad cards in your deck. But it's 2 May conditions. It's 2, May abilities, basically. So it's perfectly fine graveyard hate. And in the case that you do want to conjure a duplicate of a card, that's pretty cool. And it's target card, so it could be anything from like a planeswalker to an artifact or a land or something. Yeah. So it's not that restrictive, which is pretty cool. It is interesting as well though, because if you're playing mono black with that, and then you're looking at the opponent's graveyard and going, oh, I don't want them to like loop time warps or something, but I would like a time warp. That seems cool. Then you're actually struggling with mana because you're not going to have double blue in mono black.
Yeah.
And that sort of usual break that we see in the alchemy towards color identity when we're talking about cards like Key to the Archive, which is you draft a card and then Key to the Archive can just cast that card. Or cards that draft cards like that, or steal cards like that, and then say, "Oh, pay mana of any color to pay it."
Yeah, this.
Don't worry about right. Whereas this is just saying, "Oh, you just get a duplicate of the card, full stop." So it's like if you again like you still time warp, you can't. You just can't cast it.
If you're in the optimal, like you said, Gix. If you're playing in Gix, you can only play like lands or black cards. Otherwise, this is just graveyard hate on a 3/1.
Yeah, so. It's neat. It's good in black aggro. It's amazing. It's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of just fine, if not, probably not at all playable, is Magmatic Scorchwing, 3 red, creature dragon, 4/4, flying. When it enters the battlefield, if you don't have any non-basic lands in your library, it gets to deal 3 to any target.
If
Nope.
you have no non-basics,
I'm
right?
going
If
to
you double negative, then it's a bit different.
I'm going to speed past this card with a summary of I am not playing all basics for this.
I will quickly say there are decks you can get away with not playing any non-basics, especially in red, like mono red. You're happy to most of the time. There are
Castle
some
Limerick,
like
I refuse. Ramming Up Ruins, I refuse.
yeah, there's ruins. There's also the discard one, the not
Creature lands
Beseiji,
are
but the
important. Mutavault,
yeah
Blinkmoth Nexus.
yeah. It
Nope.
probably isn't very good.
Nope. Not.
5 mana 4/4 with flying.
Nope.
If you're on a budget, then it deals
It's
3
a rare.
damage.
If you're on a budget, it's still a rare.
If you
It's
open
not.
it randomly, yeah,
Yeah.
not exciting, uninteresting.
Speaking of not exciting and not interesting, Phyrexia Roach, disgusting.
Oh, hallelujah!
Creature, Phyrexian cockroach. That's just ugh. Ugh. I don't need this. It is a 1/1 with Toxic 1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, insects you control and insect cards in your graveyard, hand, and library perpetually gain Toxic 1. Myriad is insect
Toxic
tribal a
one
thing.
stacks. Aha!
Is
But
is insect tribal a thing?
no.
Okay,
But no.
so this card sucks. Moving on.
Whoa! Wait! I have two things to say about this card.
What?
Which is first of all, toxic stacks. So if you attack with this, it's toxic 1, and then it will have 2 instances of toxic 1. So it will hit for 2 toxic next time,
Graveyard,
and then
hand,
3, and then it will snowball.
and library.
If you
It does
hit,
not say on the battlefield. It does
Wait.
not give itself Toxic 1.
no, insects you control.
Insects
does.
you control.
It does.
and
It does. It
insects
does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. So if you connect 4 times with Phyrexia Roach, that's toxic 10. If you just hit them 4 times with this card, you win the game.
Oh, so you just have
Is
to
that
hit somebody
likely?
4 times with
Okay,
the 1/1.
no.
Awesome.
It's pretty dumb. What this card is screaming is, "Hi, put me in your Alchemy constructed decks where you can run me as a 4 of," right? So it's not really for Singleton.
Yep,
It's
not-
kind of funny, it's kind of stupid, and it's kind of hilarious if you can get them with it.
Yeah,
Is it
if.
really good? No.
It's a fat if.
No.
Speaking of, okay, I don't have
Well.
any more speaking of jokes anymore. That segue doesn't work for this card. Anyways, Contagion
Absolutely not.
Dispenser.
Completely different.
Contagion Dispenser is 2, a green and a blue for an artifact. When it enters, proliferate. So off to a good start. Whenever you proliferate during your turn, draft a card from its spellbook, and its spellbook is a whole bunch of different proliferate cards. It only triggers once each turn. Notable cards in its spellbook. Is it draft? Yeah, you get the draft, so that's pretty good.
Draft, yeah.
View spellbook. Give me 1 second.
So I'm pretty sure all the spell books will be drafting.
Yeah.
I think there's one, which is the Tome of the Infinite. I think is the only one that doesn't draft, and it just gives you one. I might be wrong. But
yeah. So cards.
Spellbooks tend to be drafted from.
Cards you can pull from the spellbook that I think are notable is Inexorable Tide, which is the 5 mana when you cast something proliferate. Flux Channel and Evolution Sage, which are staples in proliferate decks. There's some other ones that I don't really care about. Tezzer's Gambit is pretty good, and Sword of Truth and Justice. They're adding this to Arena, but only in a spellbook. I find that disappointing. But also,
We got Power 9.
But also protection from blue and white. This makes me want to cry. I hate that line, protection from blue and white. This card.
You're just gonna counter either the artifact or the
the
sword, right? Exactly.
If.
And then you play a sweeper and it still gets them. So.
Yeah.
Eh.
What do you think of the card in general, though?
So the neat thing with this, okay, 4 mana do nothing. Those tend not to be good.
Nope.
However, if you manage to play it in a position where it's gonna be like the game's about having attacks on resources, trying to outvalue, outgrind. This is pretty good at that because every card in the spellbook says proliferate, and whenever you proliferate, you get another card from the spellbook. So you're always gonna like just generate a massive chain of cards from the Contagion Dispenser, which is a very fitting name. So just dispensing proliferation over and over and over again. Pretty cool flavor. It's on an artifact as well, so it's not going to be blown up by creature removal, any sweepers like that. Artifact removal in Historic Brawl is fairly limited. There are not many valuable artifacts that you care about removing, and stuff like Paradox Engine, stuff like I don't know, like Urbrass Forge or something like that. There aren't that many like valuable artifacts that you need to get rid of, like stuff in Emery. But so it's like it's pretty safe because of that, and running artifact destruction is pretty bad in against most decks, so people aren't really going to have it in their main deck. So it's pretty safe. It's a lot of value. The problem is that it does nothing the turn you play it. You get to turn 4, you do nothing.
Well,
if you're against any sort of mid-range creature deck, they're just going to attack you to death. And like they don't care if you're cutely drawing like extra cards each turn because you're tapping out to do that.
At least it replaces itself the turn you play because it comes down and immediately proliferates, so it triggers itself the first turn you cast it.
Yeah.
But
that as well. So it's not even that bad into removal.
Yeah. So I think you made a good point. Good in some things, but maybe a bit too slow. You agree with that verdict?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. This is a cool card that has so much text on it. I'm going to give you the delight of reading this one off.
Yeah, no, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! A Darksteel Hydra. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! You look at that image. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! You look at the text. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! So, where did the magic card disappear? So it's X and Abzan. This one's not a legendary as well, so you can't even build around it too easily. There are already not many decks this thing can even go in. But anyway, it's an indestructible Hydra. It enters with X oil counters on it, where X is the amount you pay. Then its power and toughness are each equal to twice the number of oil counters on it. When it enters the battlefield, can draw Darksteel Ingot and Darksteel Plate into your hand. So, say X is 3, you get a 6/6 with Indestructible, and you draw 2 cards.
Yeah. For those of you who do not know what Darksteel Ingot and Darksteel Plate do, Darksteel Ingot is a 3-mana mana rock with Indestructible. It just taps for any color of mana, so it's an indestructible manalith. And then Darksteel Plate is a 3-mana equipment that is indestructible, equips for 2, and grants indestructible to the creature. So, lots of indestructible stuff. I think it's cool. This is another, like, it's probably kind of good and constructed if you can make the three colors work and your mana base is good. Not particularly playable in our format, unfortunately, because I do think it is a cool card.
Yeah, I agree. Just Abzan's really tough, especially when it's not a legendary, so you can't run that as the excuse to be in those colors and play that card.
Can't even play it.
If you're running any 4-color like Atraxa, or you're playing like 5-color piles or anything like that, this card's probably likely not good enough there anyway. Yeah. Because it already wants you push you in a certain direction that greed multicolored piles aren't really going to be doing in the first place.
Yeah. Moving on to Glistening Extractor. It is a 2 and a blue-black for an artifact, so another 4-mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with 4 oil counters on it, sorry. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 1 or more oil counters on Glistening Extractor, seek a card with mana value equal to the number of oil counters on Glistening Extractor. Then remove an oil counter from Glistening Extractor. I just said that word so many phrase glistening extractor so many times. It names
That
itself
is.
so many times. Why? It has the name of the
That's
card for, if you count the actual like card name, it says it names itself 5 times, or its name is printed on this card 5 times total. Why?
it thinks of itself very highly, and is not vain whatsoever. Uh, yeah. It's weird, right? It's like 4 mana delayed draw 4,
Yeah, this is not that good.
and it's a beginning of upkeep. So you
So you
play it
don't
and then
even
it
get
doesn't
it
do anything.
immediately.
Hey,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I've heard about 4 mana do nothing artifacts before. We literally just talked about one called Contagion Dispenser.
At least the Contagion Dispenser comes down, proliferates, and draws a card immediately. This does nothing the turn you play it, and you're limited to how many cards it can get you. This is like
Now,
just infinitely worse. Like,
I mean,
Phyrexian
you
Arena.
could make the argument that if you're seeking cards in your deck, this is more useful, because when you're using the Contagion Dispenser, you're playing cards like, I'm going to play 2 mana, draw a card, proliferate. I'm going to play 3 mana, lose 2 life, draw 2 cards, proliferate. And that's one of the better options. I'm playing like, 2 mana for a 1/1 with proliferate, right? And in like, those cards aren't amazing. Those cards are cool, and if you're in like exactly Azuri, that's pretty sick. But like Glistening Extractor, you're in Dimir, whatever. You play it, and you're like, at least I am gonna like draw like 4 cards that I do care about, because these are all gonna be cards that are already in your deck. And if you're running cards that are in your deck that you don't care about, why did you put them there?
Yeah.
So
I think this card is bad. I don't think this card is good enough.
it's yeah.
Look, blue-black.
I'm ready to be wrong. I'm ready to be wrong on that one.
I don't think blue-black needs the extra greed and value. I think it has enough. This seems like a worse Phyrexia.
Yeah, would you
Arena
just
or
rather run
black market
like an
connections,
X draw spell? Or, yeah, absolutely.
or Sign in Blood? I would play Sign in Blood over this. Just 2 mana, draw 2, lose 2. Just
right.
I think any black draw spell or like blue.
Or any draw spell at this point
is just better than this. I mean, I guess you'd have to build around it, around having like specific 4-drops, but you can't really do that in this format. So
I think you just run a normal, like, you play like Ashiok Control, and then you just get 4 cards, and you're like, well, 3 mana is likely going to be, well, like Counterspell or Removal or something, or a Mana Rock or whatever, and then all card draw, and then like 2 is going to be a Counterspell or Removal, 1's going to be Removal, something like that.
Yeah,
and it's like, at least you know you're getting cards.
So
we
gotta hurry this up. I think we dawdled a lot on cards we thought we were gonna talk about very briefly, but we got.
My fault.
No.
Yeah.
Me too. All right, speeding on. Icar Aberration, 1 blue-black, flying defender 3/3. That's already terrible. It's a Phyrexian horror as well. As long as it's
oh no,
greater, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. When you proliferates, if it's in your graveyard or battlefield, it perpetually gets +1/+1, and you can cast it from the graveyard. Cool.
So it's not counters, right? So you can't proliferate this up really quickly.
Nope.
It's kind of silly. I don't know if you can. This seems difficult to make work. It does seem difficult.
It's so clunky. You don't need the 3/3 defending.
How many proliferates are you gonna have? It's in Dimir as well.
Yeah.
Like, you need this to be in Simic to actually be anywhere decent. But being Dimir, I think, is such a significant downgrade for the abilities that it has.
Okay.
So yeah, probably not playable.
Alright, last 5 cards for this segment. Mephidros Slime, 1 black-green, creature Phyrexian Ooze, 3/3 with trample. When it dies, conjure a card named Mephidros Slime, so this card, into your graveyard. Perpetually double its power and toughness. And shuffle... Oh, so you perpetually increase the power and toughness of both this card and the one you conjured, and then you shuffle
And
them
they
both into the
both go
library.
into your deck. Yeah.
This is another, like, this is cute, but it's not good.
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna end up with like 3 mana 6/6s and then 3 mana 12/12s, but they're gonna be like so deep in your deck somewhere, and you gotta. I mean, it's a 99 card deck. How often are you gonna be like really, really seeing this come out and come out and come out that you're gonna like build it up?
Yeah.
I foresee potential shenanigans if you can have this as your only 3-drop. Imagine this is your only 3-drop in the deck, and then you run Spawning Pod, and you have like a whole bunch of 2-drops, and then every single time you get a 3-drop, it's always the slime.
Oh, that'd be cool. But that's a very... I don't know if that combo's worth it in Historic Brawl.
But then you run all the tutors for the slime possible. I reckon it's possible. I reckon it's possible.
Alright, well...
I didn't say good. I reckon it's possible.
I reckon Innovative Metatect is a card that is not the worst card I've ever seen. It is white-blue, so 2 mana for a 1/3, which is meh. Creature, Phyrexian Artificer. Whenever one of our artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, seek a non-land card with mana value 2 or less. This card is good, I think.
It
right?
says draw cards if you're playing a suboptimal deck. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're brewing like some golem shenanigans, I mean, blue-white is sort of the place to be, kinda. Artifact creatures. Some like tempo deck with this. Non-land card with mana 2 or less is going to be counter magic or some like really cheap creature you can play out.
You only get... It's one or more creatures, so you only get 1 card regardless of how many creatures hit, plus it's not an artifact itself. Alright, never mind. Moving on. Seething Skitter Priest. Here's another 4 mana. Feels like there's a lot of 4 mana cards this set.
It's definitely a challenge for how small can they make the card text.
Yeah. 2 white-black creature Phyrexian Cleric Toxic 1. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control and creatures in your hand perpetually gain. When it dies, create a 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block.
Bad. Next, right? Like.
Yeah, cool.
Hey,
too slow
we
for
got
token
our toxic support card. Yay! No, you didn't.
Speaking
this
of
card's
toxic,
not good.
Yeah.
It doesn't help your deck.
Nope.
Yeah.
Way too slow, way too clunky, I think. Speaking of toxic, Skull Piercer Net, a green and a blue. I'm gonna let you read this one off.
It's got the flying toxic 1 on a 1/1. Whenever it deals combat damage, a random non-land card in that player's hand perpetually gains when you cast it, get a poison counter. This is very Hearthstonian in terms of, like, I'm thinking like Curse Lock, where that was that. I mean, I think that deck's still a thing, maybe.
Never played.
That was like the last, that was like the last time I remember Hearthstone was like Curse Warlock being a thing. This reminds me of it, where it's like you make their hand kind of like trappy to play. Is it good? No! Toxic is not supported. If you put this in... Okay, the one advantage of this card is you're playing Simic, which means you attack them with this, you play Azuri, you play Contagion Dispenser, and then you like proliferate, and then you're like, wait, I win the game. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can randomly win with Toxic in
Simic.
Simic, yes, in Simic. Gosh, I don't know why I blanked on that one. And it's kind of cool. I mean, also it's likely you're going to be able to attack them again, and it's also going to make like more of their spells get the poison counter. Now this can stack as well. So if they only have 1 card they can play, and then you attack them, it gets the poison counter when they cast it, and then you attack them again, and then it will give them 2 poison, and suddenly you'll like... It's like pseudo discard on attack, but you're also getting toxic down already for proliferate. I think it's slightly better than some of the other toxic cards we're sort of clowning on because it's in the right color for proliferation.
Yeah.
Is it actually good? I think it's
maybe
fun. I think it's fun. I'm not going to claim that as good though.
Last thing I'm going to say about it, it has potential if green-blue proliferate gets more tools and starts to get better. I think this is a card that, if it had a couple more cards to make it a little bit better, to make that shell a bit stronger, then it would be playable, but I don't think it is super playable right now.
Yeah.
Alright, last card
Last
of
one.
this set, and then we can move on to the next segment. This has been a long first segment. Phyrexian Scrapyard. It is a land. Tap, add a colorless mana.
It's a land, confirmed.
It is indeed a land. It produces mana. Pay 1, discard a card. Conjure a card named Phyrexian Scrapyard into your hand. I don't remember what that card does.
It's this card. You get another copy of this card.
Oh, hey. I know what this card does, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
Sacrifice 3 lands named Phyrexian Scrapyard. Conjure
I don't know.
Soul of New Phyrexia onto the battlefield?
This I don't know.
Hold on, I got this. Soul of New Phyrexia. What does this card do? It is a 6 mana 6/6 with trample, so it's free. So we're gonna ignore the cost. So it's a 6/6 with trample. Pay 5. Permanents you control gain indestructible. Pay 5 until end of turn. Sorry, and then it has another ability where you pay 5. Exile Soul of New Phyrexia from your graveyard. Permanents you control gain indestructible till end of turn. So it's a
2 temporary indestructibles.
It's like, I mean, I guess if you want to hold up 5 mana every single turn, you're protecting your board from wraths. I don't think this card is very good, and I don't think it's worth going.
Well, no. Hold up 3 mana. Because what you'll do is you'll tap 2 of the scrapyards and then use the ability of the 3rd scrapyard and then cycle 3. So it's not quite 5 mana. I mean, I'm not saying that this card's amazing.
I'm talking about to activate the ability, so you have to do.
Right.
So if you want to hold up 5 mana every single turn to keep your board from getting nuked, you go do that. But that's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good. That means you're pretty much not doing anything with most of your mana every single turn.
You're turning cards in your hand into colorless lands. No thanks, right?
Yeah.
Like, why? Colorless lands are already not amazing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're mana screwed and you have a colorless land that can turn your cards into colorless lands, it's not going to help you if you need colored pips.
Maybe Gitrog can play it. No, because Gitrog's 2 colors. Oh yeah, this card is bad. This card is very, very bad, I think.
You will play this card in your colorless Ugin deck, colorless Battlethopter deck, and you will have fun with it. But you will not win many games.
So we don't really have fun if you're losing so many games. I guess if you're playing colorless, you've already signed up to lose 80% or 90% of your games.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Alright, well.
Those are all of them. Got through them.
That's finally over. We're going to move on to the next segment. Myriad, I see you're very comfortable now.
I am. Yeah, no, I'm not really making an effort to sit up correctly, to be honest. My back might complain in like an hour or something.
Anyways, moving on to our next segment is our weekly deck challenge. This week we I can't speak. This week we
that's an issue.
Yeah. This week I challenged it's too late in the day. I challenged Myriad here to play the new Kaya, the Intangible Slayer. Because he was dogging on our girl, and I told him that if he didn't have any success with the deck, then it was a skill issue, and he didn't know how to build it right. So how'd it go?
Skill issue.
Did you do good, or do you?
Did I build it right? Well, using your words exactly, for the first iterations of the deck, I was definitely having skill issues. Let's say. If I'm going near 50% with any deck, usually it's a write-off. And I was going 50% with Kaya, and I was not enjoying that 50% win rate when I was trying specifically to try and win as many games as I could. Like, if I'm sweating for a 50% win rate, issues.
Yeah.
There are issues. I had considerable help from our Discord because this one was not. It's not an archetype for me. It's not the card for me. It's not the deck for me. I don't. It's not for me, right?
Yeah.
I had a lot of help with card suggestions, and land like mana based suggestions as well, because that's something you have to work out. Um, and also just playstyle suggestions as well. Pretty much everything about the deck I got help from the Discord, um, and that was really helpful. So after quite a lot of tuning from like day 1, day 2, day 3. Like I was using my work break to go through the Discord, ask about some cards, read about some other cards, and take notes. So when I got home, I would make those changes. Um, and after 3 days, I had another iteration of the deck, which was running about 75% on the ladder, which is my sort of like, it's pretty decent level. 70% plus is like, I'm happy. 80% is where like, I'm like, yeah, I'm taking this to the league sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'll take it for the league, because I don't think it was like, I don't think it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think I managed to make it playable. Um, and I think there are a lot of traps with it as well, where it's like if you just go for mono, just simply control all the way without any creatures, and you just like removal, sweeper, removal, hand hate, Kaya, draw more cards. And then my win condition is going to be I'm going to eventually just use Kaya +2 to deal
Mm-hmm.
2, gain 2, like every turn. Like, yeah, that's fine in theory, but in practice it's just very. It's conflicting, right? Because you want to then be drawing cards and trying to close out the game at the same time. And you can't do that because those are two different abilities on the same
Yeah.
Planeswalker. Um, so it like that ended up being that sort of 50%. It wasn't very good. And this is where a lot of people were saying, "Hey, you need to put in like some creatures to actually attack them down with." And so I know in our game that we
Ugh.
had our best of 3,
Don't
and I
remind me.
play Edgar, and who
Mm-hmm.
who I had the it was like the freaking vampire noble card, whatever. And you're like, wait, what? It's like
Yeah.
that sort of
Why?
weighs in the deck because he attacks you,
Mm-hmm.
and then if I play destroy all creatures, he flips around to an artifact, gives me some more creatures, and then flips back again. Um, and that's actually quite valuable, both as a roadblock for aggro and as a way to beat control. Um,
Yeah, he's a very good card. I
so
think. I think that ended
yeah,
up being
it's
a good inclusion.
yeah, and there are a bunch of like cards like that. So um, that's sort of where I ended up with the list. I think it could do with some fine tuning, but I actually think the deck is quite playable. And it's very fun. Like you can do some stupid things with your opponent's cards. Like I had someone play Vorinclex, and so I played Kaya, which entered with half loyalty. So instead of 6, it enters with 3. But I used the -3 to exile and take a copy of Vorinclex. I put
Oh
my
my
commander
god.
back in the command zone. Now next turn, or on the very next turn, I play like the 6 mana Liliana, and then
Oh
I make them
god.
like sacrifice like all of their permanents because it enters with 12 loyalty and I -9, and then they sacrifice like everything on their board. That was satisfying.
That's
That was
nice.
that was fun. So there are some stupid stuff you can do with your opponent's
Mm-hmm.
cards as well, but yeah, it was all right. And then I gave you a deck I was personally
Mm-hmm.
very interested in, but didn't have time to get around, which was Nissa Ascended Animist.
Uh-huh.
How was that for you?
Mystical Burr. Nissa Gober. Oh my! It was like I'm not used to just killing because I'm always playing blue white, right? I'm always on blue white. I ended up playing blue white for this week because I decided that I liked winning instead of messing around with whatever other commander that I
I
thought
like
about playing.
winning.
So I
Yeah.
played Teferi again. So I'm very used to like the Teferi Draco counter Wrath, counter Wrath, that kind of play style. And Nissa was just like, I could take 12 turns to finish this game, or I could clock you on turn 4 and 5 semi consistently, especially on the play, and just win on usually on turn 5 with the Nissa ult because it's so easy to ramp into Nissa because there's so many mana dorks and mana rocks that you could play. So that's all I did, right? So I didn't have to go through like multiple stages of the deck in order for me to like be really final on a list. I made some changes like last minute, right before our match. Well, not right before our match, but like I put in some new cards, took out some old ones, played like 3 games, and then we played the challenge match. So
Right.
those cards weren't very tested. Um, but it was fairly easy to build. It was super fun to play. Like, I felt kind of guilty how fun it was just killing people so quick and not giving them. I'm used to not letting people play Magic because they had to ask permission to play Magic. Well, in this scenario, they couldn't play Magic because they died before they could keep playing more Magic. So, I think I might just play this deck more in my free time. I ended up enjoying it so much.
I
But
mean,
it's a ton of fun.
perfect result, I think.
Yeah.
Perfect
Uh,
result.
I had like I just looked at it. I was at like 30 something games. Like I think it was at 34 games with a 66% win rate. So not quite as good as like a competitive deck. So I don't think I'm gonna ever take it to the league, but I'm definitely gonna have some fun in queue from time to time with Nissa. I have a new respect for Nissa Ascended Animist. All right, so that's this week's or last week's, I guess, challenge. This
Yeah.
week's is interesting. What do you got for me? Throw it at
Uh,
me.
After some debate, I think because we were talking a lot about proliferation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, man, look at all these do nothing proliferation cards, and it's like, is this actually good? And I'm impatient, and I know I was going to give you some commander that you actually would have liked, but instead, again, I'm giving you something that you might not like as much.
It's blue,
But
right?
it is blue,
Ah,
and
of
it's
course
blue
I'll like it then.
green. So maybe your new two favorites, but it's going to be Azuri. I forget the
I
full
thought
name of
sh-
the card.
I was kind of hoping you were gonna
Um,
say Uro, but that doesn't have anything to do with proliferation.
Azuri Stalker of Spheres. That's it. So just to see like how competitive, how viable the proliferation strategy is. It's definitely mid range. You're definitely going to be letting the opponent play Magic
I'm
because
gonna be
it's not
playing
it's not going to
planeswalkers and
be.
counter spells.
Well, I mean, you could also take it that way, but it definitely rewards you for playing cards that say proliferate because you're going to be drawing cards every time you do
Mm-hmm.
that. Now, I mean, maybe you go and just play mono blue control with some green ramp.
It's
I
not gonna
like,
be.
I don't.
It's gonna be like much more mid range, less control, more mid range. Just play all.
Yeah,
It's gonna be like all the Nissas and the two Teferis that I can play and the what's the
just more super
Casmina
friends.
and yeah,
Right.
it's just gonna be like a Super Friends. The way I would build it is just Super Friends, and I don't know. Maybe I'll try some of the new cards we just talked about in Alchemy.
Yeah, proliferate. Proliferate is also interesting because you can also do like creature board states where you're using and abusing +1/+1 counters with proliferate,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of like that's quite a snowball if you can get that rolling. But it's like two completely different directions, and you might
Mm-hmm.
have to decide like the happy middle ground of I want some creatures to defend my planeswalkers, but I also want like the creatures to be able to beat down the opponent if they keep countering like my expensive walkers and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can like proliferate that, but you don't want to be all in because sometimes that can be a bit fragile to just other mid range who are like looking to play big greed stuff. I think it's very interesting. In that respect, I think it's quite similar to like a Johnny Sleeper Agent, which I spent a lot of time with. I think it's kind of similar to Kaya, where there's multiple directions and it might be a balancing act. What have you given me this week?
If I remember correctly, I believe I gave you the Royal Scions. Yeah, the Royals. Yeah, I have it written down. Yeah, it's the Royal Scions. So blue red, +1 to 3 mana, +1 to draw discard, plus another +1 to give I think first strike and trample to a creature, and then a minus to like draw I think 4 cards and deal. I don't have the card pulled up. Sorry, and then deal damage equal to the number of cards in your hand. I've always kind of thought that this card has potential. I have a bit of history with this card. It's the first mythic that I ever pulled from a pack. So it's a little bit special to me, a little bit sentimental, and I decided to throw that at you. So now we're both playing blue decks this week.
Fantastic. I mean, okay, this one I have had experience with before, but only in draft. In draft,
really?
It was kind of fun. Getting the ultimate off was very fun. I mean, if you're drawing 4 cards in draft, you're pretty happy in general. And then you also nuke something. I mean, amazing card in draft when you could protect it. In a constructed format, I'm unsure. I'm unsure if this is actually going to be workable, but this is what this is for. We're going to try. There are also multiple directions I could take this one because it's I think the only difference that you think that you miss is it's first strike trample and +2/+0. So it does push in a little bit of extra damage with that, but then the other mode is just draw a card, discard a card. So there's the normal is it draw discard synergies. There's hey, I'm in blue-red, so I can run like all the evasive like creatures and try and aggro you out with the +2/+0. Maybe I need a mix so that I can play for both sort of abilities, where I can play for card filtering to get card value because I'm drawing cards that say draw cards and getting rid of the cards that don't, stuff like that, and then protect the Planeswalker to ultimate and then just get a lot more card advantage, maybe. I'm unsure, and I'm unsure the balance for that one as well. This one, I don't have a deck to fall back on this time. There isn't a pre-existing deck for them. So this is going to be a completely from scratch build. And I don't think it's that popular. So I'll have to see if other people even like want to help with this one, just because it's not like I think this is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
I think it might also be even more challenging than Kaya was.
We'll have to see. Alright, so we were going to go over the cards from the spoilers for March of the Machines. I mentioned it earlier at the very beginning of the video. Very sorry for anybody who waited this long to hope to tune in and listen to that, but we ran out of time. The first card review this is a learning experience for the Arena Brawl Cast. This card review took a lot longer than anticipated. I thought we were going to skim over some more cards and have more time, but you will get your fix of spoilers and our thoughts on the new cards. So just a little bit of patience. Promise, we'll get there. Next week, we'll get there. We should have a lot to say about the new commanders that have been spoiled next week. So tune into that when that episode comes out. Other than that, Myriad, do you have anything you want to close with?
I mean, if you waited this long to realize we didn't have a segment on that and then didn't check the chapters, I mean, your fault. Your fault. What can I say? What can we say?
Blame the audience. We need them.
The information's there. Nothing misleading at the start, not at all.
It's never your fault. Everything here is Myriad's fault. We're blaming you.
Oh. Okay, I see. Well, look, thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. We enjoy putting this out there. And yeah, again, like any feedback, if you want to join the community, you have any dumb deck brewing ideas, or even you have a brew and you want to make that competitive or slightly better or whatever. I'm sure if you join our discords, plural at this point, because I'm using like both Brawl Hub and Historic Brawl Stronghold for deck building. For sure, join. It's such a fantastic resource. Just the community is so great. Cannot say this enough.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to say on our way out is thank you to everybody who tuned into the Brawl Challenge this week. That ended up doing a bit better than I kind of expected it to. Like viewership wise, in the first day we cracked over 100 views, which for everything else we put out, that's kind of nuts. That's the fastest growing video that I've personally, Myriad and I together have at least personally put out. So very excited to see that that it's already got some warm reception and that people are enjoying it. So expect more of that content every week on top with the podcast. It's going to be great. There should be another video that it gets uploaded with this as well for the Kaya versus Nissus, so stay tuned for that too. Alright, other than that, Myriad, let's get out of here.
Alright, good night, my friend. Bye-bye.
We'll see everybody else later too.